Okay, so our first lesson was the other day, and we talked about the title, Call of the Wild, and the title of the chapter, Into the Primitive. And from that, we can infer that Buck, who is our main character, a dog, is going to begin to hear the call of his ancestors, which were wild dogs, right? And he's going to go back into the primitive world in every way. So here on our first page, and I was teaching you about the imagery and the diction and the setting and hubris, which is what? Hubris is excessive pride, isn't it? And ego. Okay? That we're going to see how Buck right here, in the beginning, he lives on a beautiful ranch, and he's pampered, he's cared for, and he ruled over the whole ranch, didn't he? And so therefore we can infer that when he goes up to the Klondike, because we know that in the story he's going to take a journey and be a sled dog, he is going to face a lot more obstacles and difficulty in learning how to handle stressful situations, because he never has had to, according to this. Okay, so he ruled, Buck ruled, that's key. And then the other dogs that were on the plantation or the ranch did not count, which also is part of the hubris, his excessive pride. He thinks he is, well, he is top dog, okay? But yes, he rules, but it also shows the fact that he doesn't really have any empathy, care, the other dogs. Doesn't that make sense? So you can rule, and you can still rule and be fair, and you can still care. But what we can infer here is that if push comes to shove, so to speak, these other dogs didn't matter to him. They didn't count. The only person or dog that matters is himself. Selfishness. Okay. And we know people like that. We all can say that. Okay. So now we're going to pick up on the story. I'm going to read it, and we're going to learn about it as we go forward. Let's, right here. Remind me to, if you can't see, let me know. But Buck was neither house dog nor kennel dog. The whole realm was his. He plunged into the swimming tank. He went hunting with Judge Miller's son. He escorted Molly and Alice, the judge's daughters, on a long twilight or early morning rambles. And here, all this is a description of the things that he did on this ranch. And they were all fun and good things. And then skipping down here, he says, or London says, among the terriers, which are dogs, he stalked imperiously. He is feeling good about himself. And Toots and Isabel, other dogs, he utterly ignored. Why did he ignore them? For he was what? King. Mark that. And I mark it in blue for me because that's my hubris. He was king. And then it repeats it again. King over all creeping, crawling, flying things of Judge Miller's place, humans included. Who does he think he is? The best. He was king, and he was king over everything, humans included. So it's almost like he saw himself as God, doesn't he? Like God. Wow. Whew. And if you think of yourself like that, don't you think that you're in for a rude awakening in your life? That you're going to find out that, hey, you're not? Makes sense? Okay. Now here, his father is an Elmo. His father's name is Elmo, a huge St. Bernard, and had been the judge's inseparable companion. And Buck bid fair to follow in the way of his father. He was the judge's companion also. He was not so large. He weighed only 140 pounds, for his mother's Shep had been a Scotch shepherd dog. Nevertheless, 140 pounds, to which was added the dignity that comes of good living and universal respect, enabled him to carry himself in right royal fashion. Okay, that idea of being king continues, doesn't it? Royal fashion. So mark that. During the 4 years since his puppyhood, he had lived the life of a sated aristocrat. Mark that. It's the same connection, we have a theme here, of him thinking himself as king, royal. He's above the law, he's above people. He had a fine pride, hubris, in himself. He was ever a trifle egotistical, as country gentlemen sometimes become, because of their insular situation. Insular means enclosed. But he had saved himself by not becoming a mere pampered house dog. Hunting and kindred outdoor delights had kept down the fat and hardened his muscles, and to him, as to the cold tubbing races, the love of water had been a tonic and a health preserver. So here again we have a description of the good life that he lived. We have the continuing theme of Buck being like God, so to speak, a king above everyone, and that he doesn't really care for any other dogs, probably not too many other people except for Judge and his family. And this was the manner of dog Buck was in the fall of 1897, when the Klondike strike dragged men from the world into the frozen north. Okay, so we're going to come back and look at our character chart in just a minute. Let me finish this and then we'll go back. But Buck did not read the newspapers, and he did not know that Manuel, one of the gardener's helpers, was an undesirable acquaintance. Manuel had one besetting sin. Sin could be flaw, right? He did what? He loved to play Chinese lottery. Mark that. And I circled loved, because that's going to come in here. Also, in his gambling, he had one besetting weakness, faith in a system, and this made his damnation certain. For to play a system requires money, while the wages of a gardener's helper do not lap over the needs of a wife and numerous progeny, children. So we're going to stop right here for a moment. So Manuel is the gardener. He does not make a lot of wages, but he loves to play Chinese lottery. Do you think that perhaps instead of playing the lottery and gambling, he could have done something else that was honorable or more stable in income to make up for the lack of his lower pay? He could have. But what we can infer about his character, he didn't want to do that, did he? He wanted to play Chinese lottery because he did what? He loved it. He loved it. It wasn't a matter of trying to make ends meet. He just used that as an excuse in order for him to play Chinese lottery, maybe without any guilt. And we all do that at times, don't we? Justify things that we probably shouldn't be doing in some way or manner, and because it's something we want to do. So that's a flaw. And from what we've known about flaw and characterization, is the flaw, if you're aware of it, you can change it. But sometimes, even if you're aware of it, you might not want to change it. And that can be your downfall, which it says, and this made his damnation certain. Tragic flaw, right? In addition to this, Manuel's treachery. Manuel, as we know, is going to steal Buck. And why is he going to steal Buck? For money, right? And remember, in this novel, 1897, during this Klondike strike, gold was found up there, and they needed big, strong dogs to work the dog sleds to go in this wild area. So here we go. No one saw him and Buck go off through the orchard on what Buck imagined was merely a stroll. And with the exception of a solitary man, no one saw them arrive at the little flag station known as College Park. This man talked with Manuel, and money chinked between them. So he not only loves Chinese lottery, gambling, he now steals the dog. So what kind of a character can we infer Manuel is? Yeah, he doesn't have a lot of strong morals and character, does he? Okay, he could have supplemented his income, as so many people have done throughout the times, with another part-time job. Not that we would want to do that, but sometimes you have to. And instead of that, he steals the dog from the man who pays him his wages. So he's a shady character, we can say. His flaw will bring ruin into him some way, somehow, okay? So we're going to stop right there for a moment, and I want us to look at the character chart here that we're filling out, or I filled out earlier. We have Buck over here, and I put down here, he's a strong, big, dark hair dog. He lives on a ranch. He's pampered. He has an easy life. Other dogs don't count in his mind, which shows hubris. He was king. He gets angry for the first time during his transportation here in a moment. And his pride gets wounded right here in the next couple paragraphs. So we're going to stop right there for a moment while you write.